The forest felt unusually silent that evening. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I walked along the narrow dirt path, guided only by the fading orange glow of the sunset. My footsteps echoed softly against the trees, as if the woods were listening. A faint scent of damp earth rose with every step. The leaves beneath my shoes were cold and brittle. I had heard rumors about a forgotten place deep within these woods. A village that did not appear on any map. A place people claimed to see only once, and never again. Branches swayed overhead, brushing together with a low whisper. The air thickened, heavy with a strange stillness. Suddenly, the path split into two. Both directions were dark and unfamiliar. Yet one side carried a faint glow, like lantern light flickering behind the trees. My heart thumped against my ribs. Curiosity pushed me toward the glow. As I moved closer, the light brightened. The shadows shifted across the trunks, almost like they were moving on their own. Then the trees parted, and a small wooden gate stood before me. Its surface was carved with symbols I had never seen before. They pulsed faintly as if reacting to my presence. A chill slid down my spine. The silence grew heavier. Beyond the gate, I saw rooftops. Dozens of them. A village hidden deep in the forest, untouched by time. Warm lanterns glowed along the narrow streets. But there were no voices. No footsteps. No sign of life anywhere. I stepped through the gate. My breath clouded in front of me, even though the air had been warm moments earlier. The houses looked old but perfectly maintained. Wooden windows stood open as if someone had just walked away. A pot of water boiled gently on a fire that had no one tending it. My pulse quickened. Every sound I made felt too loud. Too intrusive. A strange humming rose from somewhere deeper inside the village. It vibrated through the ground and into the soles of my feet. I followed the sound. The narrow street stretched longer than it should have. The lanterns flickered, casting long trembling shadows along the walls. As I reached the center of the village, I saw something that made my breath freeze in my chest. A circle of chairs stood arranged neatly around an ancient stone well. Each chair held a small wooden doll carved in perfect detail. Every doll had its head turned toward me. And the humming suddenly stopped. The silence pressed against my ears. It felt so heavy that even my breathing sounded wrong. I stared at the circle of wooden dolls. Their carved eyes seemed too focused, too aware. Their tiny bodies were positioned perfectly, as if someone had placed them there only moments earlier. A cold sensation crawled slowly up my arms. The air around the well felt colder than the rest of the village. My fingers stiffened as if the chill were seeping into my bones. I stepped closer. Leaves crunched softly under my feet, the only sound in the square. Each doll seemed to lean slightly forward now, as if they were waiting. The well itself was covered in thick vines. The stones were dark and damp. A faint smell of moss drifted upward, carried by a breeze that touched only the center of the village. I swallowed hard. The back of my neck tingled. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. I forced myself to look around. The houses stood perfectly still. Every window pointed toward the square, like silent witnesses. Then I noticed something else. A thin line of fresh footprints trailed toward one of the houses. The steps were small but clear. They looked like they belonged to a child. My heartbeat quickened. The footprints were recent. They had not yet filled with dust. I followed them toward a narrow wooden house at the edge of the square. Its door was slightly open. A faint creak came from inside, swinging. With the slow breeze, every instinct told me to leave. But something stronger pulled me forward. Curiosity, fear, and a strange sense that the village wanted me there. I placed my hand on the door. The wood felt warm, almost as if someone had touched it from the inside just moments earlier. I pushed it open. The hinges released a long, low groan. Inside, the house was neat. Not dusty, not abandoned. A chair sat pulled out from a table. A cup rested on its side as if dropped mid-sip. A soft thump echoed from upstairs. My heart jumped. I took a slow step forward. The wooden floor creaked gently beneath me. The air carried a faint scent of lavender. It felt wrong, too fresh for a place that should have been empty. Another thump sounded, this one louder, closer to the staircase. My hands trembled as I moved toward the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. The humming I had heard earlier began again, faint and low. It vibrated through the walls, through the floor, through my chest. I reached the top of the staircase and paused. The hallway stretched long and narrow. Dim lantern light flickered at the far end, casting shaky shadows along the wooden walls. Then I saw him, a small figure standing motionless near the last door. A child, barefoot, facing the wall. My breath caught in my throat. His skin looked pale in the lantern light. His head tilted slightly to one side. His arms hung loosely at his sides. The humming grew louder. It seemed to come from everywhere, yet nowhere. The child began to move. Very slowly. His head turned inch by inch, as if his neck resisted the motion. When his face finally came into view, my stomach clenched. His eyes were wide, glassy, and entirely black. No whites, no color, just endless darkness reflecting the flickering lantern glow. He opened his mouth slightly. His lips barely moved. "You should not be here." The voice did not fit the small body. It sounded old, rough, almost as if several voices spoke at once. I stepped back. The floor creaked sharply beneath my heel. The child blinked once. Then he raised one hand and pointed toward the window behind me. "They are watching." The humming turned violent. The walls trembled with the vibration. I spun around, my pulse pounding. Through the window, I saw movement in the square. Figures, dozens of them, standing between the houses, standing behind the chairs, standing at the edge of the lantern light. All motionless, all facing the house I stood in. And every one of them wore the same blank, expressionless mask. The sight froze me in place. Dozens of masked figures stood perfectly still, their pale faces tilted upward toward my window. The lantern light shimmered across the blank expressions, making every mask look carved from bone. My breath grew shallow. The child lowered his hand slowly, his dark eyes unblinking. "They have been waiting," he said. His voice felt like cold air slipping under a door. I forced myself to step away from the window. The wooden floor groaned under my weight, each sound echoing through the silent hallway. The masked figures outside did not move. Not even a flinch. The humming softened, settling into a low, steady vibration beneath my feet. Almost like a heartbeat. Almost like the village itself was alive. The child stepped toward me. His feet made no sound against the wood. He reached out and gently touched my wrist. His fingers were ice cold. "You opened the gate," he said. "And when someone opens the gate, the village chooses." My throat tightened. "Chooses what?" He turned toward the staircase, motioning for me to follow. "The one who stays." Fear coiled tight inside my chest. Yet something pushed me to follow him down the stairs. Each step felt slower, heavier, as though the air thickened with every breath I took. When we reached the doorway, the child stopped. The square outside glowed with lantern light. All the masked figures faced the house in perfect stillness. He looked up at me with those hollow black eyes. "You can leave," he whispered. "But if you leave, someone must take your place." His words hung in the air like frost. Cold, unavoidable. I looked at the circle of dolls around the well. Their carved heads now faced the house, just as the masked figures did. Every one of them seemed to wait for my decision. My heart pounded painfully. A single path stretched from the house to the open gate at the far end of the village. The way out. The only way out. I stepped forward, my legs trembling. As I moved onto the path, the masked figures shifted. Not a step, not a breath, only their heads turning slowly, following my movement with perfect, silent precision. The child remained in the doorway. He lifted one hand in a small gesture of farewell. "You will forget," he said. "Everyone does." The lanterns flickered violently, as if reacting to his voice. The humming swelled one last time, deep and resonant. Then it vanished, leaving a heavy, unnatural quiet. I walked toward the gate. The air warmed with every step. The shadows loosened. The trees beyond the village swayed gently, as if waking from sleep. When I crossed the threshold of the old wooden gate, I felt something lift from my chest. A weight, a presence, a coldness that had clung to me since entering. I turned back once. The village that had been glowing moments before had gone completely dark. No lanterns, no figures, no child, only empty rooftops beneath the moonlight. By morning, I stumbled out of the forest and onto the familiar path home. The scent of damp leaves was the same. The wind sounded normal again. Yet something felt missing. Something important. And when I tried to remember the village, I felt only a strange hollow ache. A sense that I had left something behind. Or someone. The trees whispered softly as I walked away. Their voices almost carried a word. A name. A reminder. But the memory slipped through my fingers like water. And the hidden village faded into nothing more than a dream I could no longer hold.